Hey everyone, I'm back working on this lower console and trying to replace the carpeting, or should I say install the carpeting. One of the things in these projects is some of them are, there's experiments and there's hit and miss, particularly where we don't know what the manufacturer's original materials were and what they used when they built the car, 35 years ago, not having access to blueprints and so forth. So sometimes it takes an experiment or two before you get things right. Where I was, what I was using and showed the last time, was I had some of these Surebonder sticks that I had picked up at Menards after doing some research, and these are Surebonder 925s is their spec, and they're not a bad stick. I think they're good for a lot of things. They're advertised to work for plastic, but I also know that the polypropylene tendency the polypropylene based products that we have in the interior, well, you got several, polypropylene and ABS, and these parts actually are stamped PPO, which is even a different variant. Some of those are hard to bond to, and even though these say bonds to plastic, I was disappointed, and I glued the piece on the entire distance, glued on a piece of carpet, and I came back an hour or two later and kind of tugged on it and went zip, and I ripped the whole thing off. So that, I wasn't happy with that. And then there were two parts to that. The first one was, these were the sticks I used. The second issue that I had was that I had bought a new, what I thought was a better glue gun, because when you're doing this, it's, we're not just doing little pinpoint things. I need to run a bead and keep running that bead. And the glue gun seemed that it was not able to keep up. And so I had bought this new arrow gun that claimed to be an 80-watt gun, and my old gun was a 20-watt gun. Gee, that ought to be really good. What I missed was there's an asterisk on the package that says it's only 80 watts inrush when you first plug it in. And essentially, it was a 20-watt gun continuous, just like my old gun was. And so, and I tested it by squeezing the gun and bringing fresh material into the chamber to see if the power would increase, as it, as you bring in new material, you cool the tip off, will it compensate? And the answer was it didn't. It stayed at 21 watts. So I returned that one. Being that I worked with Surebonder things, I found in a retail store, actually back at Menards, these were on clearance. It's a 100-watt professional gun by Surebonder, and I don't know if it'll work a lot better or not, but I tried it with my kilowatt device, and the inrush on this guy, instead of being around 80 to 100, is about 200, and I haven't put a stick in it yet, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm going to run some experiments this morning before I start trying to glue the carpet on and get myself committed. So, I have a new glue gun, which ought to keep the material hotter so that it flows better, so that it adheres better. Because it may be that part of my problem with the 925 was that I wasn't getting it hot enough, or keeping it hot enough while I was applying it. Because it seemed to be inconsistent. Sometimes I did a test sample that adhered really well, and other times I did a test sample that was like, not so good, and then it would tear right off. I also went to a different location. I went to a supplier called hotmelt.com, and one of the challenges when you want to go get special hot glue sticks is everybody wants to sell them in industrial quantities. You're buying industrial type materials, so sometimes you can get somebody who will sell you one for at a pound of material, sometimes 5 pounds of material, but most of the time you go find, hey, this is the best stick I could ever get, and they want to sell you a 25-pound box. Well, that would cover me for 5 lifetimes. We don't use that much hot glue. So I went to hotmelt.com, and they offer a sample pack, and that's kind of my backup. I ordered a sample pack, and I ordered a bag of, these are called SuperTAC500. These sticks are all by Infinity Bond, which is a different company making glue sticks. And in searching the Infinity Bond's site, this SuperTAC500 is advertised as being a stick for plastic to plastic, and plastic only. You shouldn't use it for anything else, essentially. And it's designed for polypropylene, polyethylene, certain, hard to bond plastics. So I ordered this one, and I ordered the sample pack, and the sample pack, the intention is, if this doesn't work for some reason, I've got five other choices. And there is some of this in the sample pack. It was just one of these things of, while you're ordering material, I didn't want to order and not have enough. The sample pack has 5 sticks, which ought to do the job. But in these days where you're paying for shipping, and if you go back and order a second one, it costs you a lot. It was an extra, I don't know, $10 or $15 to get a full set of this, and so I did. It's insurance. Lets me do some experimentation if it doesn't work the first time. So now that I know far more about glue sticks than I ever intended to learn, I'm going to load one of these in my new gun, and I want to make a couple test dots and samples on the console and verify that it really sticks. And if the tests work, then I will I'll go ahead and reinstall that carpeting. First thing I'd like to note is that my my little kilowatt box here is showing about 40 watts on this gun, on this Surebonder gun. And as I said, it starts off around 200, and as it warms up it drops. And what I did find on this is that if I pump a little fresh glue into the chamber, I'm just squeezing the handle a few times, then what I saw was the power starts going back up, and it was up around in the mid 40s. So this gun is running about double the power of my other gun, and hopefully this is enough. We'll see how it works on this job. Okay, so I have cut 2 more samples of the carpet, and I have this section prepared, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot here on top of the other glue. I'm going to put a dot here out in the open on fresh material. I'm going to put a dot on the back of one of these carpet samples. And then I'm going to put a dot on one of these carpet samples and glue it down and let it sit. And so at this stage, I'm going to let those sit and give them about 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll see where, let's see how it does when it hardens. If it's the right material, I'll go ahead and install this carpet. Alright, these pieces have sat now for a good 20 minutes, and I guess I'm going to start by just seeing if I can peel it off. And the answer is on this one, taken me a lot of work, but it's essentially peeling. It's pretty well stuck. I'm getting it off, but it's also bringing the backing along. And okay, so I can get it off, but it's pulling hard enough to peel the backing. And these dots, let's see if I got a good. Get my putty knife here. Just a plastic one, but that sure stuck. Alright, I got the dot off, but it's leaving. I mean, basically I peeled the dot. There's still material laying there on the surface. So that's pretty good. I mean, eventually you can peel the dot off, but it seems like it's sticking pretty hard. Here's one that's on top of the old glue because I'm going to have to deal with that too. I mean, I'll be laying a bead over the top of the old glue. And okay, and that worked. Again, it peeled up the old glue, so it's got a good bond to the old glue, and the old glue held the carpet on for years, so that should work. Now let's see what the carpet itself. There's just one dot under here. Let's see what we get. Okay, and once again, I actually tore the carpeting. There's a hole torn out of it, and and here's the dot, and it's pretty well spread out. So that's looking pretty darn good. I think this one's going to be a success. I don't think we're going to peel the. I mean, let me be careful here. There's a dot here. It has the imprint of the carpet backing in it. So I was able to peel it off, but in parts I'm tearing off the backing completely. So all right, well, I'm going to have to clean that off of there, and then I'm going to prep to go ahead and try to glue the carpet on. We'll see how we do. All right, I think I'm ready to start gluing. I've laid this out carefully. One of the things I found on the old parts is that this edge and this edge at the front should be just about flush. You can have a little overhang, but not a lot, at these two places. So I think I have it where it belongs, and I've clamped it down with two clamps, and I actually put a spare piece of carpet underneath to make sure that it didn't get dirty from anything on the jaws of the clamps and the vice grip. But the risk to me seemed to be, in experimenting with this, is you want it completely lined up on this end, and you want it completely lined up on this end, and if you get any twist in it, you won't have good alignment. And so this should keep it aligned. And speed is kind of the essence with hot glue. You've only got a minute or less. So I think my strategy would be to put a bead down the center and lay this down, maybe across the end, and get this positioned, and then roll it back and put the beads on the edges. And then switch to the other end here and and finish this one off. It's a little hard to know, but this glue seems pretty tenacious. I don't know that I'll get a second chance. At least there's always a second chance. It's just, will it be, how easy will it be? And recognizing the amount of glue that I might use, get a couple of spare sticks out here in case I run short, or when I start running that stick down, I put a couple more in. Come on. Roll this guy back. And I'm already ready for my next stick here. Sure that I'm aligned at this end. Press that dude down. Make sure that it's in. Oh, and I said I was going to put one on the end here, so I better do it quickly before. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now let's get this edge up. I'll watch out I don't get my fingers burned on this. Come on. Move it out of here a little bit. Like it's down pretty well, so now we can back this off. That end certainly isn't moving anywhere. First, go around that, make sure that we get it laid down where it belongs. Going around this bend is actually, I think, the trickiest part on the whole thing. Okay. Now I can come back on this end. another stick. Okay. Press it into the glue good here. Alright, so far so good. Just a little bit of a tug says looks like it's stuck. The dot over here just so the corner seemed a little loose. I mean, the factory was not that precise. The original part was not glued all the way at the edges all the way around. Alright. Well, that looks pretty nice. Now I'll have to flip it over and do the other side. I'm having a little trouble getting the carpet to lay just right here. It's got a little bit of a belly, so I'm just going to try to warm it up a little and see if I can minimize that. I don't want to melt it, I just want to warm it up a little. I don't want to melt it, just see if I can make it a little less stiff and get it to lay in better. The old carpet that came off was had a more flexible backing, and it conformed a little easier. That actually looks like it worked pretty well. Down to this edge, I'm back to the back. Can't complain about that. It's just a little tricky taking it around the bends here and getting it to lay where you want it. Yeah, a little heat helped a lot, just in getting it to conform. I mean, it wasn't hotter than I could touch. It was just warm. It seems like I have a little bit of an overhang here. I may have to trim it a little bit once I'm in, but I want it to be lined up properly here at the back. I'll start here, work my way down. I think I'm going to do like I did on the other one, and go around the edges after I get the center part settled. Now we can put a little bit here, a little bit here. Okay. Looks like it laid in there pretty well. Now, I said I was going to put some across the end here. Okay. Putty knife. There's my scraper. Here we go. already down, so little threads here and there of glue, but that laid in there nicely. And the difference between this glue gun and my other glue guns, when you use a lot of glue, this one cranks up the power. Right now it's sitting at 32 watts after I ran those beads. So it's not 100 watts, but it apparently runs enough power, regulates enough power to keep that hot. That's pretty nice. Okay, now I need to lay this one down, so I'm going to come around, take this clamp off. Take this clamp off. Then we'll... I'm going to start in here, go around the side of this. Once we get that in place, I know where it needs to lay. Keep that edge there. Make sure it conforms. That looks good. Now I can tear it. I can peel it back and go up around the edge. Just following the old glue line. I'm trying to not be stingy with the glue. Okay. Alright. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm going to have to see how the upper console fits. This all lined up very nicely here. Just a little bit high right here, but I had plenty of material on the bottom. So I don't see any problems there. All looks pretty good. Alright, well I'm going to take a break, let that all cool down and set, and make sure it's all well adhered when I come back. Well, I've gone around and tugged on this pretty well, and it really is stuck good, stuck well, with a couple of exceptions, just a couple. This one section here didn't bond, and across the front here. I mean, it's the glue is well bonded to the plastic, but it didn't get a good bond to the backing of the carpet. I probably did too much area, and it cooled a little bit more before I got it pushed down. So I've warmed up the glue gun. I'm going to hit this one more time and just re-glue this. Kind of give it a better hit in here. They have to be careful with these though. The glue guns are rated that their tip, the so-called high temperature guns, which this is, are rated at 380 degrees. So if you get this stuff on your fingers, it's really going to burn. So you generally don't want to do that. Got to be really careful. Just got a couple places here around the edges where it didn't bond quite as nicely either, so I'm just going to touch it up. That one's okay. That one's okay. The glue bead's a little deeper. The upper console goes over this and will kind of hold it in place, so I'm not too worried. But all of this seems really good and tight. I've gone around and yanked on it, and I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's good. Alright, and then these vents, they have a left-hand, right-hand designation in them. So, took them up and cleaned them out. And the question will be whether I can sneak them in there this way or whether I have to cut a little more material out of the way. Let's see how they do. There are the holes. Helps to put it in right side up. Oh. I think I'm going to have to trim that carpet just a little bit more. But we'll finish that up in a minute. It's going to end up like that.